You are listening to the Call to Action podcast, where we aim to inspire, educate, and inform entrepreneurs and self-starters on tech and tips related to navigating this ever-changing world. Thank you for tuning in to episode 21 of the Call to Action podcast. I am your host, Shantae, as well as the person who runs the blog, ctamarketing.biz. If you missed episode 20 of the Call to Action podcast, go and check it out. I had a fireside chat with David Wiseman, who is from Toronto, Canada, and is the author of the self-development newsletter, D Cubed. David shares in his newsletter one thought, one quote, and one question. And on a side note, I actually signed up for his newsletters and I enjoy them. I just got my second one, and David is wise. That's why his name is David Wiseman. But I really do like his newsletter. So make sure that you go and listen to that podcast. You can learn about David as well as how to get signed up for his newsletter. As always, before I go into the topic of the show for today, I share a motivational quote. And here is today's motivational quote for episode 21 of the Call to Action podcast. Do something today that your future self will thank you for. I don't think there's anything else left to be said about that one, everyone. So I'm going to repeat that one in case you missed it. Do something today that your future self will thank you for. Let that marinate today as you go throughout your day and your work day and your evening and work on your projects. Keep that in mind. Now, let's go into today's topic, which is about wellness. And you're probably wondering, Shantae, why are you talking about wellness? Well, that's a good question. And I have done some research. And before I get to that research, I do want to let you know that in episode 1, if you remember, I did mention that we are going to discuss a diverse set of topics on this podcast, including wellness and self-care. Now, I did do some research, and I have found that people on a daily basis are bombarded with a lot of information. This comes by the way of the news, social media, advertisements, and sometimes it can be overwhelming for some people. So this is what I found. And according to bizjournals.com, a person is exposed to 4,000 ads a day. This includes TV, radio, print, apps on your phone. You guys have seen them. You know what I'm talking about. So I also went to another website called thinkbynumbers.org. And then I also saw that people spend 70 minutes per day watching the news. So this is what brought me to want to share some ways that we can manage all of this information, all of the stress and anxiety that sometimes people feel as a result, and they may not even know where it's coming from. But I just wanted to take the time just to share a little bit of information that you may find helpful, that will help you or maybe someone that you know that may be experiencing some things. So when we talk about wellness and self-care, this is a broad topic, and there are many resources available on the internet. But today, I'm just going to share a few things like stress. What is stress? And how can stress affect the body? Some signs and symptoms of it, and also some ways to manage it. So what is stress? Stress, according to the dictionary, is a state of mental or emotional strain or tension resulting from adverse or very demanding circumstances. Now, when you're an entrepreneur, or even if you're working for someone else, you may have felt some stress. a project could have come along that you had to get done, you had a tight deadline, or you got some news while you were at work. Just any type of things really can cause stress if it's not managed. So, and we probably have all experienced that on one level or another, or in one way or another. So when we're talking about stress on the body, what are some ways that stress can affect the body? If it goes on too long, it can cause illness. We're talking high blood pressure, headaches, aches and pains in the body, just some things that you probably really don't want to deal with, but they are signs and signals to let you know that you may be dealing with some stress. So how can you manage it? Luckily, there's ways that you can manage your stress. There's things you can do at home. There's things that you can do if you're outside, find a hobby. You can do some physical exercise, like go to the gym. Just be mindful in your day-to-day awareness of what you're doing. You can also draw. You can listen to music. And one of my favorite is dancing. So you could do any of those things, or just find something that works for you to help you to manage that. Ultimately, the goal is just to feel better. So I hope that you have found the information that I shared helpful. I hope it's something that if you're dealing with a stressful situation, that you have identified some ways that you can work through that, or at least not let it affect you to where it affects you physically. So find something that you like to do. So back to the quotes that I mentioned earlier in this episode. Let's do something today that our future selves will thank us for. Until next time. Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Call to Action podcast. Make sure to visit me on my blog at ctamarketing.biz. There, you can find articles for entrepreneurs and self-starters on tech and tips to help navigate this ever-changing world. Until next time.